Welcome to What You Really Want to Know. I am attorney Amanda Shaffer. Today, we are going to tell you what you really want to know about the public charge rule and Medicaid, and that's specific to New York State. So if you're watching this and you do not live in New York State, some of the general things that I'll talk about will apply to you, but you should contact an attorney in your state to make sure if you are receiving any state-funded Medicaid in your state, that it also complies. So, and I will point out when I'm talking about something more general as opposed to New York specifically. So I made a nice little presentation here. Let me get that up. Oh, we can make it bigger. Okay, here we go. The public charge rule and Medicaid in New York. So we've been getting a lot of questions about this. If you don't know what I'm talking about, public charge rule, I'll get to what that is in a second, but there was a major change that took place about a year ago. And since that time, there's been a lot of people really confused about what benefits they can qualify for or not qualify. They can receive and not affect their immigration paperwork negatively or status negatively. So I want to just try to clear up a few things because I know in New York there's a lot of plans that are called Medicaid. And when people look up Medicaid, they think that means in and of itself that you are going to make a problem for yourself with immigration. And that's not necessarily true. So hopefully this clears some of that up for you. And if you're watching and you have questions, please feel free to ask. Hopefully they'll show up and I'll be able to answer them. If not, I will answer them after. And before I get to the first slide, I just want to remind everybody to make sure you like us, follow us on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, all of those things, so that you don't miss any more of our lives. So, what is a public charge? A public charge applies to someone who's applying for permanent resident status or for a green card or for a visa to enter the U.S. based on a qualifying family relationship. So essentially, family-based immigrants, people who are asking to remain permanently in the U.S. based on a relationship to a family member. So spouses, children, parents, and the like. So you need to be that person, and then the government deems that you are somebody who is or is likely to become dependent on the government for financial support. So everybody who applies for a green card based on family categories, they're going to go through the public charge evaluation. This is how it's always been. They've just changed the difference between this year and last year is they changed what is considered a benefit under the public charge rule, or a public benefit under the public charge rule that will put you in a bad spot. So that's like a really basic definition, but that's what it means. Now, there's many aspects of the public charge rule. I'm only focused on the Medicaid aspect. Things like food stamps, that falls under it. Section 8 or any type of housing benefits falls under this. Really anything that is a means-tested benefit. And what that means is that you only receive a benefit from the government based on your income. Federally funded, state funded. So here I'm going to talk a little more generally about the public charge rule, not just about how it applies in New York State. So it only applies to federally funded Medicaid. What that means is if you're receiving healthcare, even if it's free in the state that you live in, and it's 100% funded by your state, then it is not a problem for your immigration. Now, the question is, what is federally funded and what's state funded? And that's why if you're watching this from another state, I highly recommend you contact an attorney in that state to make sure if you're going, hopefully before you even apply, that you know what you're applying for and that it won't hurt your immigration status or your potential immigration status. And there are certain groups that are flat out exempt from the public charge rule. Even if you're receiving 100% federally funded Medicaid, you don't have to worry about it. These groups include I don't think this is an exhaustive list, and this is a non-exhaustive list. But again, if you have any questions, if you fall under one of these categories or not, you should contact an attorney. So pregnant women, I believe it actually includes 60 days after giving birth, any medical care that you may receive. Children under 21, asylees or refugees, anyone who is here with a T or a U visa, so that's for trafficking victims or crime victims, VAWA, which is for abused spouses and children and parents of U.S. citizens and permanent residents, and green card holders. Now, I have this little asterisk because if you already have a green card, this doesn't apply to you unless one of two situations occur. One, you leave the U.S. for more than 6 months. When you come back, I haven't heard it happening to anyone, but apparently they can now subject you to the public charge evaluation, and if they think you're going to need government assistance, you might have a problem. And the other is if you are a permanent resident in the U.S., even if you don't leave the country, if you have any criminal convictions. And generally speaking, if you are a permanent resident and have a criminal conviction, you're likely going to have other issues you want to worry about. So what I recommend is if you do get arrested for any reason, you contact an attorney who's familiar with immigration and criminal law to make sure that whatever you end up pleading to or whatever you resolve your case is not going to hurt your permanent resident status. So otherwise, if you have a green card, it doesn't apply to you. This doesn't apply to U.S. citizens. So now we're talking, I think this is my last slide, yeah. We're talking about New York specifically. So New York, a lot of my clients will actually come to me with their Metro Plus cards. And I don't have one to show, but basically if you look on it, it'll say like either very low copay or no copay. And everybody's really worried. I've had clients so worried that they've actually given up their healthcare, which is not a good thing, especially since it will not hurt you if you have one of these programs. So, and this could be found on the ID card or on the letter that approves you for it. This is usually means tested benefit, but again, 100% funded by the state, not by the federal government. So the federal government cannot use that against you when you're trying to adjust your status to a permanent resident. So there's the essential plan. These are the 3 plans that are not included in the public charge rule at all. Essential plan, and that's true even if you don't pay anything in a premium, $0 premium. Same with the Child Health Plus plan. Even if your premium is $0, you're not going to have a problem with the public charge rule. And then the qualified health plan, which again, same thing. If your premium is $0, and even if it's because of premium tax credits, if anyone watching has filled out that new form, the I-944 Declaration of Self-Sufficiency, you may have seen a mention of premium tax credits on there and what your deductible or premiums are. They're asking all these questions. Again, you have to fill it out honestly, but there's no problem. You're not going to have any problem if you have one of these plans and you don't have a premium or deductible. So a couple of other important things I just wanted to make a note of here. Well, let me find it. That's my problem. Okay. I lost it. All right, that's fine. I can find it somewhere else. So in New York, most immigrants, and we can get rid of that, most immigrants who are enrolled in the essential plan are not impacted by the public charge test. Most of the immigrants enrolled in Medicaid in New York State are actually, and this comes from New York State, by the way, I'm not making this up. Most immigrants who have Medicaid in New York State have Medicaid that is fully funded by New York State. And that's the key, like I said earlier on. So this is not a factor under the public charge rule. If that's the case, you won't have any problems. Keep your health care, keep your kids' health care. And that's a second question. What about if your kids have federally funded Medicaid and you don't? Your kids are probably U.S. citizens or permanent residents. And that's okay. That's not going to affect you. You keep them on their health care, let them have their health care, not a problem. What about emergency health care? Emergency Medicaid. That's another not group of exemptees, but I guess people who have emergency Medicaid are a group, so we could have included them there. That doesn't make you a public charge either. They want you to get medical care, even if federally funded. Get your emergency medical care. Don't, please be careful, be safe. That's the most important thing, is your health. And the last question that a lot of people ask is like, well, when does it apply? Does it apply if I received federally funded Medicaid in 1990? Or does it only apply to people who have filed since the new law change? That's a very good question. And the answer is that it is not a retroactive law, meaning if you received any public benefits that are federally funded before the effective date of the new rule change, which was February 24th of 2020, then even though you received it, it cannot be used against you. If you filed for your adjustment of status or for your visa, your immigrant visa, that part's a little different. I won't get into that right now about consular processing versus adjustment. Let's just focus on in the US right now. So if you filed for your adjustment of status before the effective date of the new rule doesn't apply to you at all. So it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters. I don't want to say it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you received federally funded Medicaid in the sense that under the new rule, it's not going to hurt you, but it might hurt you under the old rule, and that's a whole different thing. So I don't want to be misleading here and say that they shortened the time period. So like if you received it, I forgot how many months it was, but if you received federally funded Medicaid for like a shorter amount of time under the new rule, then you can be deemed a public charge. So there are differences between them if you received it in the past or you applied before February 24th, 2020. I'll never forget that day because I filed like a stack EA high. If you could, there we go. There we go. It was like, it was at least a foot of applications I put together all by myself for clients to get it in before the public charge rule took effect. So I will not forget the date. So you don't have to worry about retroactive. If you are enrolled in any Medicaid programs that would violate the public charge rule and you are looking to become a green card holder, I would recommend that you do withdraw from your benefits because it could really hurt you. Now, another thing to keep in mind, these were changes made under the Trump administration. We have a new administration now, and it is unclear how they are going to be handling this new form and this new rule. Now, it is a rule. It is in the federal regulations. It can't just go away out of nowhere. There has to be a whole new notice and comment period before that can happen. A whole new proposed rule notice and comment period, which is like 60 days, and then a final rule put into place before this can go back to the way it was. There's also court cases right now challenging it. So the Biden administration has to deal with this. We just don't know how strict they're going to be, how much they're going to push, because in the past, the public charge thing was never really an issue because you have a sponsor, and if your sponsor doesn't make enough, you have a joint sponsor. So it was already kind of taken care of, so this never really became an issue. So we're hoping that it doesn't, because it can disqualify a lot of people who, once they get their green cards, they're going to be able to support themselves, and that's something they might not be able to show at this point because they look at everything, which again, I don't want to get into the entire 19-page form for public charge rule, but in terms of Medicaid, key points to take away: if you live in New York, if you have the essential plan, if you have the child health plan or the qualified health plan, even if your premium is $0, as long as everything is funded by the state, which it should be, but you should double check, you should not have a problem with the new public charge rule. And that does actually, in terms of federally funded versus state funded, is important for the rest of the public charge rule, even for any other type of program. But of course, if you have any questions, you should contact an experienced immigration attorney, such as myself. Our contact information has been scrolling across the bottom of your screen. I will do more of these videos about the public charge rule going forward. I do think I'm going to continue to parse it out because it's really, really confusing and dry, and I just want to make sure everyone understands it, because it helps me understand it too, to be honest. I mean, I don't know what they're doing sometimes with immigration, but especially because I've seen an increase in these questions, I wanted to make sure that we addressed it fully, and I hope we did. But if you do have any other questions, please feel free to contact us, and make sure to like us and follow us on Facebook and YouTube, Twitter, I don't know, all the stuff we're on, you'll find us. And so you don't miss any more lives. So that is all today for What You Really Want to Know. Thanks for watching.